There's a man standing at his own funeral, not dead, alive, watching. He sees the faces in the crowd, his coworkers checking their phones, his friends already planning where to get lunch after, his family, tired, relieved almost, because for the last 10 years of his life, he gave every single piece of himself to people who never once asked how he was really doing. Nobody cries too long, because he spent his whole life pouring into a cup that was never his and never once filled his own. This is not a story about death. This is a story about the death you're living right now, every single day when you put yourself last. And today, that ends. We were all raised on the same poison, weren't we? Think of others first. Don't be selfish. Put yourself last and you'll be rewarded. It sounds noble. It sounds like virtue. It sounds like the kind of thing they carve onto gravestones. And that's exactly the problem. It is the kind of thing they carve onto gravestones. Because the people who live by that rule without limits don't get remembered as saints. They get remembered as ghosts. People who were physically present for 40, 50, 60 years and completely invisible the entire time, even to themselves. I want you to picture a well, a deep stone well that an entire village depends on for water. Every day, people come with their buckets. They lower them down, pull up what they need, and walk away without a second thought about the well itself. Nobody asks, is the well running dry? Nobody wonders, does the well need rain too? The well just keeps giving, keeps giving, keeps giving, until one day it doesn't. And here's the part nobody tells you. When the well finally runs dry, the village doesn't mourn the well. They just go find another one. That's what happens to people who never think about themselves. The world doesn't reward your emptiness. It just moves on to someone who still has water to give. So let me say something that might make you uncomfortable, something you were never given permission to believe. Thinking about yourself is not selfishness. It is survival. It is stewardship. It is the only way you'll ever have anything real left to give anyone else. There's a woman I want you to meet. Her name doesn't matter, because she is every single person watching this who has ever felt guilty for wanting something for themselves. For 15 years, she worked a job she hated to support a family who never once asked if she was happy. She skipped her own health checkups to pay for everyone else's. She missed her own dreams so quietly that eventually even she forgot she'd ever had them. One day, her doctor told her the exhaustion she'd been ignoring for 3 years had a name, a serious one, the kind of name that makes you sit very still in a cold room and finally ask yourself the question you spent your whole life avoiding. What about me? She survived, but she says the sickness wasn't the wake-up call. The question was, because here's the brutal truth. The world will take every single piece of you that you're willing to give away for free, and it will never once stop you. It's not cruel. It's just human nature. People take what's offered. It is your job to know what's yours to protect. You've heard it on every airplane in the world, and you've never actually listened to it. Put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. They don't say that because the flight attendants don't care about your children. They say it because it's the only version of the instruction that actually works. A parent who passes out from lack of oxygen cannot save the child sitting right next to them, not because they don't love them enough, because they didn't have enough air left to try. This is the entire secret hiding in plain sight. Self-neglect doesn't make you more useful to the people you love. It makes you a liability to them. Think about the people in your life that inspire you the most, not the ones who complain the loudest about how much they sacrifice, the ones who genuinely glow, the ones who seem to have something extra to give, some kind of light that never seems to run out. I promise you, every single one of them has mastered something the empty, exhausted version of selfless never learns. They protect their peace like it's sacred. They guard their time like it's gold. They say no without drowning in guilt. And because of that, what they do give, they give from abundance, not from desperation. There is no nobility in giving from an empty cup. There is only exhaustion wearing a costume of virtue.
Let me ask you something, and I want you to actually answer it, not just let it pass by like background noise. When was the last time you did something, anything, purely because it made you feel alive? Not because it looked good, not because someone expected it, not because you'd feel guilty if you didn't. When was the last time you chose yourself? If you're sitting there struggling to remember, that's not a small problem. That is the loudest alarm your life has ever tried to sound, and you've been hitting snooze on it for years. Here's the mirror moment. You cannot pour from a cup you never refill. You cannot lead a life you were never present for. You cannot love people fully while quietly disappearing from your own story. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that thinking about yourself makes you the villain. But look closer at the story you've been telling. Who's really the villain? The person who finally says, "I matter too," or the life that convinced you that you didn't? So how do you actually do this? How do you start thinking about yourself without becoming cold, without becoming cruel, without turning into everything you were afraid of? 3 shifts. Simple, brutal, necessary. First, protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. Every person, every task, every obligation in your life is either filling your cup or draining it. Start noticing which is which. You don't owe your presence to everything that demands it. Second, make decisions from desire, not guilt. Guilt has been running your life long enough. Before you say yes to something, ask, do I actually want this, or am I just afraid of what happens if I say no? That single question will change the entire shape of your future. Third, invest in yourself before the world forces you to. Your health, your mind, your skills, your peace. Nobody is coming to build these for you. Every single person you admire built their life on a foundation of choosing themselves first, so they'd have something worth sharing later. This isn't about abandoning the people you love. It's about becoming someone strong enough, whole enough, full enough to actually love them well, instead of loving them from the last fumes of a life you never lived for yourself. So let's go back to that man at his own funeral. Except this time, rewrite it. This time, the room is full of people who remember him laughing, who remember him traveling to the place he always talked about, who remember the year he finally said no to the job that was killing him and yes to the life that was waiting. This time, he didn't disappear into everyone else's story. He wrote his own, and because he did, the people around him got to know the real him, not the exhausted echo of him. That is the man you get to become, not by abandoning the world, but by finally showing up as someone worth remembering in it. You were never put on this earth to be quietly used up and forgotten. You were put here to become someone so full of life, so anchored in your own worth, that everything you give afterward comes from strength, not sacrifice. So today, stop waiting for permission that's never coming. Think about yourself. Not because you're selfish, but because you were finally ready to matter, starting with how you treat you. If this spoke to something in you, don't let it fade in 5 minutes. Subscribe, share it with someone who's been pouring from an empty cup for far too long, and come back, because this is only the beginning of becoming who you were always meant to be. I want to ask you something, and I need you to actually sit with it, not scroll past it, not answer it the way you think you're supposed to. Answer it the way you actually feel. When you look at your calendar, the real one, the one full of appointments and obligations and other people's emergencies, how much of it is yours? Not tasks you have to do, not things you'll get in trouble for skipping. Yours, chosen, wanted, alive. If the answer is barely any of it, ask yourself why that felt normal for so long. When was the last time you said no and didn't immediately follow it with an apology? When was the last time you turned down a request and didn't spend the next hour explaining yourself to someone who never once explained themselves to you? Think about the people who call you when they need something. Now think, when did you last call one of them just to say, "I need something today, actually"? If the silence in your head just got a little louder, that's not an accident. That's evidence. Here's a harder one. If you disappeared for 1 week, no calls, no texts, completely gone,
How many people in your life would ask, "Is she okay?" versus, "Who's going to do her job now?" Sit in that. Don't rush past it. Now ask yourself this: if a stranger treated you the way you treat yourself, talked to you the way you talk to yourself, ignored your needs the way you ignore your own, ran you into exhaustion the way you run yourself, would you call that person a friend? Or would you call them something else? Be honest. And here's the one that matters most. If you keep living exactly like this, same pace, same self-neglect, same quiet disappearing act for another 5 years, who will you be? Will you even recognize yourself? Or will you be a stranger wearing your name, still waiting for permission to matter? Because that permission was never going to come from someone else. It was never going to arrive in the mail. Nobody was ever going to walk up to you and say, "It's your turn now." You were always going to have to take it. So I'll ask you one final time, and this is the only answer that actually counts. If not now, then when?